Every man rejected the 60-year-old widow for being too old, until a broken rancher made her feel. Mara's hands moved steadily as she adjusted the irrigation nozzles along the edge of her small hydroponic field. The sun of Elysium 7 hung low in the pale green sky, casting long shadows across the metallic soil beds that she had tended for decades. The planet was quiet, too quiet. Mara had grown accustomed to the solitude over the years, but today there was a lingering emptiness that pressed against her chest. She paused, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. At 60, she still remembered Earth vividly, the smell of rain on clay soil, the sound of her children laughing, the sharp tang of salt in the air near the ocean. Life there had been simpler, warmer, and yet more unforgiving than anything she faced on the frontier. Here, among the alien plants and robotic helpers, she was forgotten by the world, and truth be told, she had grown used to it. The communications panel beeped, a rare sound that drew her attention. Messages from the colony network flashed across the screen, but most were routine. Supply schedules, weather updates, and automated requests for agricultural data. There was nothing personal. Nobody wrote to her, nobody invited her anywhere, and the few colonists who knew her tended to see her as past her prime. She had learned long ago to shrug it off, to smile politely, and to continue her work without complaint. Still, the loneliness sometimes cut deep. Humans, she had realized, always craved connection, even when they tried to deny it. Mara had lost her husband 20 years ago in a mining accident on a neighboring asteroid colony. Since then, no one had seemed to notice her existence in any meaningful way. Suitors had come and gone, but each seemed to measure her against some cruel metric of age and vitality. Too old, too worn, too irrelevant. She had stopped responding long ago, burying herself in work and habit. The sun's light shifted, turning the pale green sky into a deeper jade as Mara adjusted the nutrient levels for her hydro ranch. Her hands moved with the kind of precision that only decades of practice could bring. She loved these plants. They were her life, her purpose. Each leaf, each delicate stem represented years of careful observation and experimentation. On Elysium 7, the flora was unpredictable, often resistant to human cultivation, but Mara had found ways to coax life from the stubborn soil. She smiled faintly at her own stubbornness, a mirror of her resilience. As she worked, a faint vibration in the ground caught her attention. At first, she thought it was one of the automated harvesters moving in the distance, but the pattern was different, irregular, offbeat. Mara frowned. She had learned to trust her instincts. The planet had a way of punishing those who ignored them. She set down her tools and walked toward the source of the vibration. The terrain sloped gently downward toward a cluster of metallic hills where remnants of old human outposts still lay. Most were abandoned, rusting away under the alien sun. As she approached, a faint glow shimmered in the distance, accompanied by a sound that was almost a hum. It was a distress signal. Mara's heart quickened. The colony network rarely sent automated distress alerts this far out. Whoever, or whatever, was signaling was alone, isolated, and likely in danger. She hesitated only for a moment. Loneliness had made her cautious over the years, but it had not destroyed her courage. She activated her all-terrain rover and punched in the coordinates from the signal. The vehicle hummed to life, its engines vibrating through the ground. The journey to the signal took several hours, giving Mara plenty of time to prepare. She packed essential tools, her multi-tool, a few energy rations, and a first aid kit. She also carried a compact plasma cutter, not for aggression but for survival, cutting through debris or clearing blocked paths. Her robotic assistant, a small hovering drone named Lyra, followed silently behind, scanning the area for hazards. The signal led her to a narrow valley between two jagged cliffs. There, half buried in the metallic dust, was the wreckage of a small spacecraft. Smoke hissed from one side and sparks flew from exposed circuitry. Mara's breath caught in her throat. She had seen accidents before, but rarely this close, rarely human. Cautiously, she approached, scanning for life signs. Lyra's sensors beeped rapidly. There was a human inside the wreckage, alive but barely. Mara's mind raced, cataloging the injuries she could see from a distance. A broken arm, shallow burns, and what appeared to be a concussion. Without a second thought, she deployed her emergency shield to stabilize the area and carefully climbed into the wreck. The man inside groaned, his face partially obscured by blood and dust. "Help me!" he whispered, his voice hoarse. Mara's hands were steady as she began extracting him, carefully avoiding the sharp edges of the mangled hull. "You're safe now," she said gently. "I've got you. Just stay calm." He coughed violently, and Myra used her scarf to wipe the blood from his face. His eyes, dark and wary, flicked toward hers. There was suspicion there, a hardness born of past trauma, but also a flicker of relief. Who are you?" he asked weakly. "Mara," she replied simply. "You're lucky I was nearby." She adjusted the sling she had fashioned for his broken arm. "Do you need water?" He nodded faintly. Callan Varick," he said. The name didn't mean anything to her, but the man's situation demanded action, not curiosity. Mara used her rover's emergency stabilization module to lift him safely into the cabin. Lyra hovered close, projecting a soft blue light to monitor his vitals. During the long ride back to her ranch, Callan drifted in and out of consciousness. Mara spoke to him quietly, narrating the plants they passed and the methods she used to cultivate them. Her voice was calm, rhythmic, and intended to distract him from the pain. Slowly, his breathing evened, and the harsh tension in his face softened. When they arrived at the ranch, Mara's careful preparation of medical supplies allowed her to set up a temporary triage area. She cleaned his wounds, applied antiseptic gels, and immobilized his broken arm. Callan was still groggy, but the signs of life were strong. She knew he would survive the night if he rested, and if she continued to monitor him. As she worked, Mara felt a curious warmth in her chest. For the first time in years, her mind was filled not just with the familiar patterns of tending plants, but with a sense of purpose beyond herself. This man, broken and far from home, had stumbled into her life, and she had the skills, the knowledge, and the courage to save him. Night fell over Elysium 7, painting the sky in hues of deep teal and violet. Mara sat beside Callan, gently adjusting the temperature and humidity in the triage room to ensure his comfort. Lyra hovered nearby, scanning and recording everything with mechanical precision, yet Mara found herself talking to the little drone as if it were a companion. "You're going to be okay," she whispered, almost to herself. "You just have to hold on." Hours passed. Callan remained unconscious for most of the night, but Myra stayed vigilant. Her mind wandered to the life she had lived, the years of solitude, the endless work, the small victories in coaxing alien crops to flourish. She had survived loss and rejection, had built a life from nothing, and now, for reasons she couldn't quite name, she felt a spark of excitement she hadn't felt in decades. By dawn, Callan stirred. His eyes fluttered open, and for a moment he looked around in confusion. Then he focused on Mara. "Where am I?" he asked weakly. "You're safe," Mara said, offering a small smile. "At my ranch, you were lucky to survive." He tried to speak further, but winced at the pain in his arm. Mara handed him a nutrient gel. "Eat this, you need energy." As he ate, Callan's eyes scanned the room, noting the careful organization, the advanced hydroponics, and the sense of calm control. You did all this?" he asked, gesturing broadly. Mara shrugged, keeping her voice light. "It's just my job." "But I've been told I'm good at it," she laughed softly. "Better than I expected for an old woman, huh?" Callan's lips twitched in the beginnings of a smile, though he winced again. "You're remarkable," he muttered. For Mara, the word resonated in ways she hadn't anticipated. All her life, she had been dismissed for her age, her solitude, her quiet ways. But this stranger, broken, wary, and alone, saw something different. For the first time in decades, Mara felt seen, not just noticed, but valued. And for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself a spark of hope. Outside, the alien sky began to brighten, and the twin suns of Elysium 7 rose slowly, spilling light across the rugged terrain. Myra watched them with quiet satisfaction, knowing that life, human life, persisted against all odds. And perhaps, just perhaps, this unexpected arrival might bring a new chapter, one that she hadn't dared imagine in years of quiet solitude. Callan slept through most of the morning, his breathing slow and even, and Mara allowed herself to watch over him in quiet satisfaction. There was something about caring for another person that reminded her she was alive in a way the ranch and the plants never could. She moved carefully around him, checking the hydroponic systems and adjusting nutrient levels. Everything on Elysium 7 required vigilance. The plants were sensitive to temperature, light, and even the faintest chemical changes in the soil. A mistake could destroy weeks of work in a single hour. Lyra hovered near the doorway, scanning the horizon. The small drone was both assistant and companion, its mechanical hum a familiar presence in the otherwise silent ranch. Mara had programmed it to help with basic tasks, but over the years, she had grown fond of the little machine. It had a way of making the empty spaces feel alive. By mid-afternoon, Callan stirred again. His eyes opened, and this time he looked around with more focus, absorbing the details of Mara's carefully maintained home. "Where am I?" he asked, his voice still weak. "You're safe," Mara said, offering a reassuring smile. "This is my ranch. I found you outside the valley after your ship crashed." Callan tried to sit up, but a sharp wince of pain stopped him. Mara moved quickly, guiding him back down. "Easy. You need rest more than anything else. Your arm is still healing and you have a concussion. Any sudden movement could make it worse." He nodded, his dark eyes studying her. "You saved me." Mara's lips curved slightly. "Someone had to. I wasn't about to let you die out there." "Not on my watch." For a moment, silence fell between them, only the hum of the drone and the soft rustle of the plants filling the space. Callan's gaze shifted to the hydroponic beds. "All this you grow it yourself?" "I do," Mara said. "Everything here, from the plants to the irrigation system, is my responsibility. It keeps me busy and alive." She chuckled softly. "And apparently it keeps me strong enough to pull strangers out of wrecks." Callan managed a faint smile. "I owe you my life." Mara waved the thought away. "Consider it even if you live to be 100, she said, her tone light but firm. She went to adjust the nutrient levels, knowing that idle conversation could tire him. As the day wore on, Callan began to regain his strength, enough to sit unaided. Mara handed him a simple meal, hydrated protein cubes and nutrient gel. He ate slowly, savoring each bite as if he had not eaten properly in weeks. "You live out here all alone?" he asked. "I do," Mara replied, "for decades now. This planet doesn't have many visitors and most people don't come out this far. I like it that way, peaceful, predictable." Callan shook his head, trying to hide a grimace. "You must be lonely." Mara considered his words. She had grown used to her solitude. It had become part of her identity. But there was a loneliness that pressed against her chest even now, the kind that gnawed quietly, unnoticed by others. She said, "Perhaps. But loneliness can be useful. It teaches you patience, observation, and resilience. Those are qualities that come in handy on a frontier world." Callan watched her carefully, noticing the way her hands moved as she adjusted the plant's support beams, the precision with which she checked every sensor. "You're good at this," he said finally. Mara laughed softly. "You're telling me what I already know. Old age has its advantages. I've had plenty of time to learn what works." The day passed with Mara teaching Callan how to adjust the automated systems. She explained the delicate balance of nutrients and light, how some plants thrived under certain wavelengths while others would wilt. Callan listened intently, impressed not only by her knowledge but by the quiet confidence with which she delivered it. He realized quickly that she was not the frail old woman that many younger humans might assume. She was competent, clever, and resourceful in ways he had not encountered in years. By evening, Mara suggested he try a short walk around the ranch. He hesitated at first, but Mara's gentle encouragement helped him take a few steps. The alien air was dry and cool, and the twin suns were dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of violet and teal. Callan's eyes softened as he looked around, taking in the rugged landscape, the carefully tended plants, and the distant metallic hills. "You really know this place," he said quietly. "I have to," Mara replied. "It doesn't take much for life to end out here. You adapt or you die." They walked slowly side by side. Callan's curiosity could not be contained. "Why stay so far out? You could move to one of the colonies. You'd be respected, appreciated." Mara shook her head. "Appreciation is nice, but it's fleeting. Out here, I'm responsible for my own life. I like that freedom. And I like the plants. They never judge. They just grow, and I help them." Callan nodded, considering her words. He had spent his life managing massive ranches and fleets, always under pressure, always under watch. The thought of someone surviving and thriving entirely on their own, it was both alien and admirable. Over the next few days, Callan's strength returned. Mara guided him through simple repairs on his damaged ship components, teaching him to stabilize the electronics enough to prevent further damage. He learned quickly, but Mara's patience ensured that every task was done carefully. They worked together, side by side, and for the first time in years, Mara felt a connection that was not purely transactional. One evening, after a long day of repairs and plant care, they sat outside the ranch, watching the stars emerge in the alien sky. Mara pointed out constellations she had mapped years ago, using the twin suns' positions as guides. Callan listened, fascinated. "You really know this world," he said again. "I've had plenty of time," Mara replied, smiling. "Time is a great teacher." Callan chuckled softly, but there was a wistfulness in his eyes. "I've spent so many years running, fighting, I've never stayed in one place long enough to really know it. Maybe that's why I didn't survive out there." Mara studied him for a moment. "You survived because you're strong, but strength alone isn't enough. It's the combination of strength, patience, and a willingness to learn that keeps humans alive on planets like this. That's why I survive." Callan looked at her, a new respect forming in his eyes. He realized that she was not just another frontier colonist. She was extraordinary in the quietest, most human way possible. He had faced storms, pirates, and territorial disputes, but he had never encountered someone who seemed to embody the very essence of human perseverance. Days turned into a week. Callan grew stronger, his wounds healing under Mara's careful attention. They worked together seamlessly, repairing his ship's damaged systems while tending to the hydroponic fields. Mara began to notice the subtle changes in him, the way he moved with more confidence, the way his eyes sparkled with curiosity again. One morning, as they finished adjusting the nutrient levels, Callan turned to her. "You know, I've met a lot of people in my life. Soldiers, farmers, engineers, but I've never met anyone like you. You're different." Mara paused, considering the weight of his words. She had spent years being dismissed, overlooked, and undervalued, but here was someone who saw her not for her age or her appearance, but for her mind, her skills, and her heart. "Different can be good," she said softly. Callan smiled faintly. "Different is extraordinary." For a moment, they simply stood together, the alien wind rustling through the plants, the twin suns rising once more over the horizon. Mara felt a quiet pride swell in her chest. For the first time in decades, she was not alone, not just surviving, but part of something larger than herself, a partnership built on respect, trust, and human ingenuity. That night, as they prepared for sleep, Callan spoke quietly. "I don't know how I would have survived without you. I owe you more than I can ever repay." Mara shook her head, brushing back her silver hair. "You repay me by surviving, learning, and using your skills wisely. That's all anyone can ask for." As she watched him settle into a restored cot, Mara felt a spark of excitement she hadn't felt in years. The arrival of this broken, weary rancher had shifted something within her. She was reminded that life, even on the lonely frontier, could surprise you, could bring new purpose, and could remind you of the human qualities that mattered most: courage, resilience, and the willingness to care. Outside, the stars twinkled over the rugged landscape of Elysium 7. Mara knew that challenges lay ahead: repairs, supply shortages, and perhaps even threats from those who might see her isolated ranch as an opportunity. But for the first time in a long time, she welcomed the future, confident that whatever came next, she would face it with strength, ingenuity, and a renewed sense of connection. And somewhere deep in her heart, Mara began to feel that perhaps this partnership, born of accident and necessity, might grow into something far more profound than either of them could have imagined. Mara woke early, as she always did, her body moving almost by instinct through the routines she had perfected over decades. The hydroponic fields required attention, sensors needed recalibration, and the alien crops demanded exact care. Callan was already awake, sitting quietly in the corner of the main room, carefully examining one of the ship's remaining systems. He had healed remarkably fast under Mara's care, but Mara insisted he take things slowly, teaching him patience as much as survival. "Good morning," Mara said lightly, her voice echoing through the stillness of the ranch. Callan looked up and smiled, though it was faint, tinged with fatigue. "Good morning, you're early as always," Mara chuckled. "The plants don't wait, neither does this world." "You get used to it." She moved to check the nutrient levels, scanning the rows of green and purple leaves. Life here demanded attention, care, and respect. Neglect even for a moment could mean disaster. Callan, watching her hands move deftly, realized that her strength wasn't just in her knowledge, it was in her constant vigilance and commitment. "You make it look easy," he said, his tone a mixture of admiration and disbelief. Mara shook her head, adjusting the flow of the nutrient mist. "It isn't easy. Anyone can plant seeds, but anyone can also fail. It's the years, the mistakes, and the patience that teach you how to survive. They worked side by side, Mara guiding him as he learned the subtleties of Elysium 7's alien flora. Callan's engineering mind helped him understand some of the automated systems quickly, and soon he was able to make small adjustments without Mara's instructions. She watched him with a quiet satisfaction. It was rare to meet someone who could adapt so quickly, and it reminded her why she had survived while so many others had not. By midday, they paused to eat. Mara had prepared a simple meal of nutrient gel and protein cubes. They sat outside, the alien sun warm but not oppressive. The twin suns hung in the sky like quiet guardians, and the rugged landscape stretched endlessly in all directions. Callan took a deep breath, savoring the clean air, and then said, "I never realized how much life could exist out here. On the frontier, we only think about survival, not about growth like this." Mara smiled. "Survival is just the beginning. Growth is what matters." Growth requires effort, attention, and sometimes a willingness to be patient with things that seem stubborn or impossible. Callan's gaze wandered to the hills in the distance. "Speaking of stubborn, I've been thinking about the wreckage of my ship. If I want to leave someday, I'll need it repaired. But I doubt the colony network would come out this far to help. Do you ever get visitors?" "Rarely," Mara said. "Most people think it's too far, too inconvenient. That's part of why I like it here. It's quiet and I'm responsible for my own life, but it also means danger isn't far away if someone decides I'm in their way." Callan frowned, sensing the seriousness beneath her calm words. "Danger? Like what?" Mara looked at him for a long moment. "People who think they can take what they want, believing that no one will stop them. On the frontier, that's not uncommon. I've had to deal with a few already. Nothing serious, but it keeps you vigilant." Callan nodded slowly, understanding the stakes. He had encountered territorial disputes, rogue miners, and resource thefts in his time. But Mara's quiet competence made him realize that her strength lay not just in muscle or tools, but in her mind. She was prepared for anything because she anticipated it. That awareness, he thought, was more valuable than any weapon. They spent the afternoon reinforcing the ranch. Mara had designed clever automated systems that could adjust the water flow, change lighting, and even detect intruders. Callan worked on stabilizing the damaged ship, using the tools Mara had provided. Together, they moved in a rhythm that was both efficient and harmonious. Each correction Mara made to the plant's conditions seemed to mirror the way she corrected Callan's adjustments on the ship. Both tasks demanded patience, precision, and observation. As the twin suns began to dip low, casting long shadows across the metallic soil beds, a sudden vibration shook the ground beneath them. Mara froze, her hands tightening on the support beam she had been holding. Callan looked around, his eyes sharp, trained from years of survival and conflict. "They're coming," Mara said quietly. Callan frowned. "Who's coming?" Mara gestured toward the horizon. A small fleet of hovercrafts was approaching, glinting metallic in the fading light. They moved with purpose, their engines sending vibrations through the soil. Mara's eyes narrowed. "Corporate raiders, they think this land is theirs. They don't care that it's already settled or that I've been here for decades." Callan's jaw tightened. "And they're coming straight for us." Mara nodded, already planning. "We'll have to be smart. They may have more numbers, more firepower, but they don't have the knowledge of the land or the advantage of preparation. Humans survive not because they are strongest. They survive because they adapt, learn, and work together." They moved quickly, setting traps Mara had prepared over the years. Automated drones were deployed to monitor the approaching vehicles. Sensors were calibrated to detect movements and vibrations. Mara directed Callan to place energy nets along likely paths of attack, while she adjusted the lighting to create false shadows and distort distances. Hours passed as they worked, the tension building with each passing moment. Callan marveled at Mara's ingenuity. She was turning their small ranch into a fortress of human creativity and resilience, using the very environment against the intruders. Rocks were rigged to roll down slopes if disturbed. Plant growth patterns were adjusted to conceal key defensive positions. Every step Mara took demonstrated experience, observation, and foresight. By nightfall, the corporate raiders were close enough to be visible on the ridge. Mara and Callan took their positions, hidden but ready. The first scouts moved into the valley, unaware of the traps waiting for them. Mara whispered instructions to Callan. Wait until they're fully in position, then activate the nets. Don't hesitate. Humans survive because we act decisively when needed. Callan nodded, his hand on the control panel. Despite the tension, there was a quiet thrill in the coordination, in knowing they could outsmart a more powerful force through intelligence rather than brute strength. The first wave of attackers triggered the nets. Energy fields surged, entangling hovercrafts and immobilizing personnel. Mara and Callan moved swiftly, using the terrain to their advantage. The raiders had expected an easy takeover, but Mara's careful planning turned every step into a challenge for them. Callan shouted, guiding the remaining intruders toward false paths Mara had set. Rocks fell, sensors triggered alarms, and carefully positioned lights created illusions of depth and movement. The raiders were confused, frustrated, and unprepared for this level of human ingenuity. Mara's mind was calm, focused. Each decision was deliberate, calculated, and effective. She had lived long enough to know that survival demanded quick thinking and creativity. Callan, following her lead, felt a growing respect not just for her skill, but for the human spirit she represented. By dawn, the raiders had been driven back, their numbers reduced, their morale shattered. Mara and Callan stood amidst the wreckage of their attempts, breathing heavily but triumphant. The ranch had been defended, not through brute force but through intelligence, preparation, and teamwork. Callan looked at Mara, awe in his eyes. "I've fought wars, faced pirates, and survived storms, but I've never seen anything like that. You're incredible." Mara smiled faintly, brushing a hand across her hair. "Humans survive by adapting, not by overpowering. We're clever, persistent, and willing to learn. That's what makes us strong." Callan nodded slowly, the respect in his gaze deeper than mere admiration. "You've taught me more in a single day than I've learned in years. I see why you've survived here all this time." For Mara, there was a quiet satisfaction in that acknowledgement. She had spent decades being underestimated, dismissed because of age and solitude. But here, in the aftermath of a challenge that would have crushed others, she had proven that human ingenuity, resilience, and courage could overcome nearly any obstacle. As the twin suns rose once more over Elysium 7, casting light across the rugged terrain, Mara and Callan prepared for the next day. Repairs, cultivation, and survival would continue, but for the first time, Mara felt an undeniable bond forming between them. They were partners, not just in work, but in facing the challenges of a harsh, indifferent world together. And somewhere deep in her heart, Mara realized that this partnership, forged in the crucible of survival, might change both their lives forever. The days after the first attack were tense. Mara and Callan worked tirelessly to repair the damages from the raiders, all while reinforcing the ranch even further. Every patch, every sensor, every trap was checked and strengthened. The land around them was harsh, but Mara knew it better than anyone, and she guided Callan with precision, teaching him to read the soil, the wind, and even the subtle shifts in the terrain. "I think we underestimated them," Callan said one evening as they patched a tear in the energy net. His hands moved with care, but there was a trace of frustration in his voice. "If they come back, it won't just be scouts. They'll bring more and they'll be prepared." Mara nodded without looking up. "They will come back. That's what people like this do. They see weakness and they strike. That's why we must become stronger, smarter, faster. Preparation is our greatest weapon." Callan glanced around the ranch, noting the intricate defenses she had built. Drones hovered silently, traps were hidden beneath the alien foliage, and sensors monitored every possible approach. "You've turned this place into a fortress," he said quietly. Mara finally looked at him, her eyes soft but firm. "A fortress doesn't keep people safe, it gives them a chance to survive. We are not invincible. We adapt, we learn, we fight in ways that others cannot predict. That is what humans do." The night passed quietly, and dawn broke with an eerie calm. Mara and Callan spent the morning working side by side, checking every system and reviewing their plans for the next potential attack. Callan was beginning to understand the subtle wisdom in her actions. Mara was not just defending her home. She was demonstrating a principle that had guided humans for centuries. Intelligence, creativity, and persistence often outweighed brute strength. By midday, there was movement on the horizon. Mara spotted dust clouds rising from the distant cliffs, and the faint hum of engines reached her ears. "They're coming," she said calmly, though her pulse quickened. "And this time they won't be scouts." Callan stood beside her, adjusting his repaired tools. How many? Mara's eyes narrowed. Enough to test everything we've prepared, but we're ready. As the raiders approached, Mara and Callan coordinated with precision. The ranch was no longer just a home, it was a battlefield designed for human ingenuity. Rocks were rigged to collapse on any advancing vehicles. Automated turrets calibrated to fire non-lethal but immobilizing pulses. And sensors were linked to a network of drones that could relay real-time positions. The first wave of the corporate attackers moved cautiously, expecting an easy victory. Mara and Callan waited, observing their patterns, analyzing their formation. As they reached the valley, hidden nets rose, ensnaring hovercrafts and throwing off their advance. Drones swooped down, projecting light to disorient the intruders. Callan moved swiftly, guiding the attackers into traps Mara had prepared. "Left! Left!" he shouted, pointing to a false path that led them toward a series of collapsible rock barriers. Mara's fingers flew over the control panels, activating emergency energy fields that forced the raiders into confined zones. The raiders fought back with brute force, but Mara's knowledge of the land and her careful planning gave them the upper hand. They could not anticipate every obstacle, every clever design she had implemented. Mara moved with calm focus, directing Callan, checking systems, and adjusting traps in real time. Hours passed in a blur of activity. Dust filled the air, and the alien flora swayed under the mechanical chaos. But Mara and Callan remained unyielding, their coordination seamless. Callan began to feel a sense of awe not only for her skill, but for her composure under pressure. She was human in every way, yet extraordinary. By evening, the raiders were retreating, their numbers diminished, their morale shattered. Mara and Callan stood on the ridge, surveying the valley below. "We did it," Callan said quietly, though he was not celebrating. "But they'll be back," Mara nodded. "Yes, and next time we'll be ready again. That's what humans do. We survive, we adapt, and we grow stronger." Over the next few days, Mara and Callan worked with the local colonists who had quietly observed the conflict. Word had spread of the ranch's defense, and many were inspired to lend assistance. Farmers, engineers, and even a few retired soldiers joined them, bringing tools, knowledge, and manpower. Together, they began to fortify the region, creating a network of defenses that would make it nearly impossible for the corporate raiders to succeed. Mara taught them her methods, showing how to use the land, the plants, and the technology to their advantage. Callan worked alongside her, his confidence growing with each passing day. The partnership between them was no longer just about survival. It had become a demonstration of what humans could achieve when they combined ingenuity, courage, and cooperation. One evening, as the twin suns set, painting the sky in shades of violet and green, Callan and Mara stood together on a ridge overlooking the valley. "I've seen a lot in my life," he said quietly, "but I've never seen humans work like this. Alone, we're strong. Together, we're unstoppable." Mara smiled faintly. "That's the lesson. Humans survive not because we are the fastest, the strongest, or the most numerous. We survive because we learn, we adapt, and we help each other. That is our greatest strength." The next attack came sooner than they expected. A larger fleet, armed with more advanced technology, approached the valley under the cover of night. Mara and Callan had anticipated this, and the colonists were ready. Every trap, every drone, every sensor was in place. The valley became a labyrinth of strategy, a testament to human creativity. As the raiders advanced, they were met with confusion and delay at every turn. Mara and Callan directed the defenses with precision, using light, sound, and terrain to manipulate the attackers' movements. Rocks fell, energy nets activated, and drones swooped in patterns that disoriented the enemy. The colonists followed Mara's instructions, moving with a coordination they had never experienced before. Callan marveled at the efficiency. "They're not just following your orders, they're thinking with you," he said, awe in his voice. Mara nodded. "That's what humans do. We teach, we guide, and we inspire. It's not just about defending the ranch, it's about showing that we can overcome anything together." The battle raged through the night, but by dawn the raiders were defeated once more. Their fleet was scattered, their plans ruined, and their morale broken. Mara and Callan stood on the ridge, exhausted but triumphant. Around them, the colonists cheered quietly, proud of what they had achieved under her guidance. Callan turned to Mara, a new respect in his eyes. "You've done something incredible here. You've not just defended a ranch, you've shown what humans are capable of." Mara looked out over the valley, the rising suns casting light on the resilient, determined faces of the colonists. We've done it together. That's the point. Humans survive because we adapt, we teach, and we support each other. That is our strength, and it is why we endure. Over the next few days, Mara and Callan worked to solidify their defenses and strengthen the colony's resolve. The bond between them deepened, not just as partners in survival, but as friends who respected each other's skills and wisdom. Mara saw in Callan a reflection of what humans could achieve when they put their minds and hearts into a task. And Callan saw in Mara a living example of courage, resilience, and ingenuity. The frontier world of Elysium 7 remained harsh and unforgiving, but Mara and Callan knew they could face anything together. They had proven that even against superior technology and greater numbers, human creativity, patience, and cooperation could triumph. The ranch had become more than a home. It was a symbol of humanity's enduring spirit. Mara felt a quiet pride swell within her. For decades, she had been overlooked, dismissed, and underestimated. Yet here she stood, not only surviving but inspiring others, guiding them to achieve more than they ever thought possible. She realized that age and solitude did not diminish value. Experience, wisdom, and courage were the true measures of strength. As she watched the twin suns rise once more over the rugged horizon, Mara felt a renewed sense of purpose. The threats from the raiders might never fully disappear, but she knew that with ingenuity, collaboration, and determination, humans could endure anything. And in Callan, she had found a partner who shared her vision, someone who understood that the greatest victories were not just about survival, but about inspiring others to rise above adversity. For Mara, the frontier had always been a test of strength, patience, and perseverance. Now, with Callan by her side, she understood that the test was not only about surviving alone, but about leading, teaching, and empowering others. And that, she realized, was the most human thing of all. The quiet before the storm was heavier than anything Mara had felt in years. The twin suns of Elysium 7 had not yet risen, and the valley lay shrouded in a soft green mist. Mara walked along the ridge, her eyes scanning the distant horizon where the corporate fleet had been spotted days before. They had regrouped. Mara could feel it in the way the ground trembled faintly and in the subtle changes in the air currents. This time, the raiders were not coming alone. They had allies and they were organized. Callan approached, his repaired arm steady and his movements confident. "They're bigger than last time," he said quietly. "We'll need everything we've built and then some." Mara nodded. "I know, but we're not alone this time either. The colonists, the farmers, they've trained, they've prepared. We'll use the land, the technology, and our knowledge to even the odds. Humans survive because we adapt, even when the odds seem impossible." For the first time, Mara allowed herself a flicker of excitement. There was danger, yes, but there was also opportunity. This was a chance to demonstrate what humans were capable of: creativity, courage, and cooperation in the face of overwhelming odds. The first signs of the fleet appeared as a pale glimmer against the horizon. Mara and Callan had positioned their defenses strategically. Energy nets concealed beneath alien foliage, sensor drones hovering above, and automated turrets ready to respond. The colonists, armed with improvised but effective weapons, waited silently, tense but ready. Mara's voice was calm as she addressed them. "Remember what we've trained for. Work together. Use the land, the light, and the tools we've prepared. Stay patient, stay observant, and act with precision. That is how humans survive. That is how humans win." Callan moved beside her, adjusting the last of the sensors. "We can do this," he said. "We've already shown them what we're capable of." The fleet advanced, larger than they had expected. Hovercraft skimmed the terrain, drones scanned the valley, and soldiers moved with mechanical efficiency. Mara observed carefully, noting patterns, anticipating movements, and coordinating with Callan and the colonists. The first wave of attack began with blinding flashes of energy. Mara activated the hidden turrets, sending immobilizing pulses toward the hovercrafts. Rocks rigged to collapse tumbled down the cliffs, blocking the paths of several enemy vehicles. Drones swooped to create confusion, projecting lights and sounds that disoriented the intruders. Callan directed the colonists with calm authority. "Move left, activate the nets." "Don't let them regroup," his voice carried over the chaos, and the colonists responded with precision. The raiders had expected an easy victory, but Mara and Callan had transformed the valley into a maze of human ingenuity. Hours passed in a blur of movement and strategy. Mara's mind was a whirlwind of calculations, predictions, and decisions. She adjusted the automated defenses in real time, directed the colonists, and monitored the raiders' responses. Callan was at her side, anticipating her actions, guiding others, and reacting with the precision of a seasoned strategist. Together, they were a force that the corporate raiders could not predict. As the battle reached its peak, Mara realized that this was more than survival. It was a test of human creativity, resilience, and cooperation. Every trap, every diversion, every decision was a demonstration of what humans could achieve when they combined intelligence with courage. The raiders began to falter. Their formations broke under the relentless obstacles and misdirection. Mara's traps forced them into confined zones, where energy nets immobilized their vehicles, and the terrain itself became a weapon. Callan moved swiftly among the colonists, providing instructions, encouragement, and support. Mara's heart pounded, not with fear but with exhilaration. She had spent decades being underestimated, dismissed for her age and solitude. Yet here she was, leading a team, defending a home, and demonstrating the power of human ingenuity. By nightfall, the raiders were in full retreat. Their fleet scattered, their morale broken, and their plans ruined. Mara and Callan stood together on the ridge, surveying the valley below. The colonists cheered quietly, exhausted but triumphant. Callan turned to Mara, his eyes reflecting awe and respect. "You've done something incredible here. You've not just defended the ranch, you've shown what humans are capable of. Together, we're unstoppable." Mara looked out over the valley, her chest swelling with quiet pride. The colonists had learned, adapted, and fought with courage and intelligence. That was the essence of humanity: strength, patience, cooperation, and the ability to turn obstacles into opportunities. Over the next few days, Mara and Callan worked to solidify their defenses and repair the damages. They trained the colonists further, ensuring that the valley would remain safe even if the raiders returned. Mara's leadership had inspired a community, one that now understood the power of human ingenuity and resilience. One evening, as the twin suns rose over the horizon, casting light on the rugged terrain, Mara and Callan sat together on the ridge, watching the valley below. "I never thought I'd see this," Callan said quietly. "Humans working together, turning a single ranch into a fortress, a symbol. You've changed everything here." Mara smiled faintly. "We've done it together. That's what humans do. We survive, adapt, and inspire. That is our strength." Callan reached out and took her hand, a simple gesture of respect and partnership. "You've shown me something I forgot long ago, that humans are clever, resourceful, and unbreakable, and that age, experience, and wisdom matter more than raw strength." Mara felt warmth spread through her chest. For decades, she had been overlooked, dismissed, and underestimated. Yet here on the frontier, she had led, inspired, and defended not just a ranch, but an entire community. She realized that value did not diminish with age. It grew with experience, courage, and the willingness to act when others faltered. Days passed peacefully, and the valley remained secure. The corporate raiders did not return, likely deterred by the strength and ingenuity they had witnessed. Mara and Callan continued their work, repairing, cultivating, and teaching. The ranch had become more than a home. It was a symbol of what humans could achieve when they combined intelligence, courage, and cooperation. Mara reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From a lonely widow dismissed for her age to a leader, a mentor, and a symbol of human resilience, she had discovered that life was full of unexpected opportunities. The arrival of Callan, a broken and weary rancher, had shifted her world. Together they had faced danger, learned from each other, and demonstrated the true power of humanity. Callan, too, had changed. He had arrived as a man broken by past battles, exhausted and weary. Under Mara's guidance, he had rediscovered confidence, purpose, and the strength of human partnership. He had learned that true power lay not in force alone, but in observation, adaptation, and the willingness to work with others. One evening, as the valley lay quiet under the twin suns, Mara looked at Callan and spoke softly. "You've helped me remember something important. That humans are remarkable, not because we never fail, but because we always rise, adapt, and inspire each other. That is why we endure." Callan nodded, understanding her words deeply. "And you've shown me that even in solitude one can make a difference. Age, experience, and wisdom are powerful tools. I see that now. You are extraordinary, Mara." Mara felt a quiet joy that she had not experienced in years. The frontier was harsh, unpredictable, and dangerous, but it had also revealed the best qualities of humanity: ingenuity, courage, resilience, and the ability to bring out the best in others. She realized that life was not measured by years alone, but by the impact one had on the world and the people around them. In the following weeks, the colonists began to settle more permanently in the valley, inspired by Mara and Callan's leadership. Farming methods improved, defenses were strengthened, and a sense of community flourished. Mara's ranch became a hub of learning and growth, a place where humans demonstrated their creativity and resilience every day. Callan spent his days repairing the ship, but he no longer dreamed of leaving. The frontier had become a place of purpose, connection, and meaning. Mara and Callan worked together, not just as partners in survival, but as friends who respected, supported, and inspired each other. One morning, Mara stood on the ridge, looking over the thriving valley. The twin suns illuminated the fields, the repaired ship, and the small community she had helped guide. She felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The journey had been long, filled with challenges, danger, and solitude, but it had also revealed the best of humanity. Callan joined her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You've done more than survive here," he said softly. "You've built something lasting, something meaningful. You've reminded everyone what humans are capable of." Mara smiled, feeling a quiet peace. "We've all done it together. That is what humans do. We face challenges, learn, adapt, and inspire. That is our strength, and that is why we endure." The twin suns rose higher in the sky, casting light across the valley. Mara and Callan stood together, looking out over the thriving land, the community, and the future they had helped create. For Mara, the journey from a lonely widow to a symbol of human ingenuity and resilience had been unexpected, but it had proven one undeniable truth: humanity, with courage, intelligence, and cooperation, could overcome any challenge. And in that realization, Mara felt a profound joy, knowing that life, even on a distant frontier planet, was full of possibilities, hope, and the enduring strength of the human spirit.